Hello everybody, welcome back. This is day 5, part 4, and I'm here showing you how to draw. And I'm using comic books as a means to do it. I would recommend going back to the beginning and start because each one we're building on top of the other. And what we're talking about now is drawing the human figure, and we're talking about action and perspective. And in the previous 15 minutes, I didn't talk a whole lot about perspective, but I kind of wanted to talk about it now. I was showing you the figure in block form. And when you talk about, let's say here's an arm, all right, we already talked about how it's a cylinder and it's just kind of, changed a little bit. Well, when you have cylinders, right, if you're drawing a cylinder, you can draw a cylinder like this. That would be, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the paper and I'm not realizing how light I'm drawing. I apologize for that. And this circle back here is kind of hidden. You don't see it, but it's the other side of the cylinder, okay? And look, when I darkened it, I didn't even darken it right. Sorry about that. Anyway, what happens is now is you could take the cylinder and you can do this with it, right? And you could do this with it. Now remember, we were talking about one-point perspective earlier, where the lines seem to converge together. So what I did was I shortened the cylinder, right, from this cylinder to this cylinder, except now I have these lines and they're kind of going together, all right? They're, at some point down the road, they're going to meet, and it's probably much further off the page than what I drew, but somewhere down there, okay? Now when you're talking about arms as a cylinder, this is basically what you're doing. So let's say this person bent this arm here at the elbow, and we just draw this cylinder here. And again, go for shapes. I can't emphasize how important that is, not focusing on saying what it is you're trying to draw, but focusing on what the shape looks like. So what I did was I moved the arm up, and it becomes shorter, and it comes, we ended up, that's what's known as foreshortening. We ended up foreshortening it. Now, I mentioned earlier that all the lines go together. Well, in the case of this forearm, your forearm at the elbow is bigger than it is at the wrist, okay? So when you move it, this part does get bigger, okay? But because this one is so much bigger, it's still smaller. Does that make sense? Because the end of the forearm is so much bigger. So what you have is, this is like the wrist here, and it's coming at you. So it's bigger than here, but here they're both approximately the same size because the elbow is just bending, okay? If that makes any sense. It's hard for me to do in front of the camera. But this applies to pretty much everything. So let's take this arm here and let's move it up so that the cylinder's here. Now what I did was I really foreshortened it, okay, so that the guy or girl raised their arm straight up. It's almost like they're pointing directly at you. And I'm gonna make them be in sort of like a defensive position here. So I'm gonna extend the elbow a little bit. And again, it's a cylinder that's smaller on one side and bigger on the other side. And that's basically the arm. Now, I'm going to fill this in a little bit so you kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about. Just to give you an idea, but this is basically what foreshortening is. So we've got the shoulder muscle here, right? And the elbow's here. Okay, so that's basically the arm, and then I don't have the hand here, so we're gonna focus on hands later on. But this is just a really quick sketch of a hand, And that kind of gives you an idea of how you do it. So you kind of just basically take the shapes that I taught you about back in lesson 1, and you start manipulating them to get to where you want to get to. Now, I also want to emphasize again, I did this in a previous lesson and I'm going to show it again. Don't worry if your work doesn't look like mine. You're beginning to draw, all right? So I'm showing you again work that I found when I was young and learning how to draw. I mean, you could see it's nothing like this, okay? Even like the foreshortening here, you can kind of see like this elbow and this one. See how much better it is? Even though the arms are still in different positions. Look at the legs, for example. Okay, look at this leg compared to that leg. Sorry. Sorry about that. So you can see that there has been improvement, and it's just a matter of doing it. So just, if it doesn't come out right the first time, just do it again, and then do it again, and just do it a couple more times. And that is basically what you're going to do. You're just going to practice that over and over and over again. And I wanted to move to the next section of this class, which is I want to get back into making the comic book, which is the writing portion of it. Okay. And I wanted to. There were some things that I did that I'm not doing in front of you, only because it would take a long time and it would be quite boring, I think, to look at. Well, remember, our eventual goal is, I showed you this, which is a mini comic, okay? Here's another one. You see what it looks like. They're pretty easy. They're fun, too, to do once you start doing them. So what I started out with was what I call, you put your ideas down. I put them down on a card. And what it is you want to know how many pages you have to work with. In the case of this mini comic, what we're doing is we're taking one single page and we're turning it into a comic book. Okay? Eventually. This right here is what's known as a scrap paper. It's like a guideline to help me with it. And when you're doing the writing portion of the comic book, what I used to do a lot of is I used to start and I would do a whole lot of really cool ideas that I liked, and then I would get towards the end of the book because I had big paper and I folded it over like this so that it was like a regular comic book, and I would get towards the end and I wouldn't have enough pages at the end to finish telling the story that I wanted to tell. So in order to do that, you want to kind of pace it out a little bit. So that's one of the reasons why I suggest taking the cards at the beginning and writing things out, and then you kind of organize it from there. And even though this involved drawing, I consider this portion like the plotting and pacing portion. So it's still writing, but I'm just doing it like visually on the page so I could see. And I suggested doing stick figures at the time when we did this. Because I hadn't started talking yet about taking a stick figure and turning it into a person yet at that point, which came later on in another class I did where I was doing stick figures and I turned them into a person for you. Okay, so you could have done this in stick figures. It's not really for anyone to see. This is just kind of your notes. And then what I did was I did kind of write notes down. So even though there was some drawing involved, this is still what I call the writing portion. And everyone does things differently. Some people just jump right in and just do the whole, just do page by page. Like I said, I kind of want to get to the point where I know where I'm going to end and how much longer I have to go. And what I did was I took these notes and whatever notes that I had, and I kind of wrote things out. And I wrote it out in what's commonly called full script. And I took, like, here's the cover, right here, and I wrote. I worked out a lot of the details that I didn't have. one of the things I did was I made like a lot of little notes here, little notes like this and like this, because I was trying to figure things out. And I decided that I'm going to call this company Tiger Comics. And what I came up with Tiger Comics was, I'm so sorry about that. I got to edit that out in the later versions. But when I came up with Tiger Comics was, I was thinking about an expression I heard from a TV show, and it said the lion does not concern himself with the sheep, which is kind of an interesting thing. Well, I looked up Lion Comics, and that's already out there. Somebody already has it, but nobody has Tiger Comics. So I went ahead and made mine Tiger Comics. Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the camera. And I put in price, and I left that blank, and I'm gonna get to that a little bit later on when we're doing the book. And then I put the title. The name of the book is going to be called, I wrote Super Sense, so that was a placeholder back before I came up with the name of the guy. But I ended up, in a previous video, coming up with the Midnight Shadow, which is what his name, the name of this character is. So then what I did was I wrote the description of what the cover is going to look like. And it's got him standing on the, in the center in a dramatic pose. I don't really need to read the whole thing to him. Over his left shoulder is the image of Super Justice, which is the Superman type character we came up with. And over his left is an alien ship shooting at an airplane. And it's going to be kind of like a movie poster type thing. Probably not as good because this is our first comic together. So I'm not going to, get into it too much, but that would be that. Now the inside front cover is, when I did this, I wrote credits by me for the YouTube, made exclusively for the YouTube channel. And I went and did things a little more detailed. It's similar to what this gentleman did here, where he started writing like contact information if you want to get a hold of him, a little bit about what it's about, and things like that. Now, what I did was I'm going to write credits. I'm going to say that I'm going to break it down, right? I really should just say that the comic book is by me, but because this is an instructional channel, I broke down the different jobs or different sections of the book: written, drawn, inked, lettered, and colored by the artist Scott, created for the YouTube channel, the artist Scott, specifically for the series Let's Make Some Comics. Then I wrote in here, copyright, the artist Scott. Now understand something, I'm not a copyright or law attorney, okay? The main reason why I know a little bit about it, probably just enough to be dangerous, but essentially as soon as you create something, you own the copyright on it, okay? I just want you to be aware of that. So like anything that I've done prior to putting a copyright notice on it, we were doing it live on video I was making the video live so you could see it as I posted it, and it's copyrighted by me, so I could prove that it's me. So if anyone tries to take it, I could sit there and say, hey, no, it's mine. Anyway, anytime you do something, anytime you create something, that copyright is yours, as long as it's not somebody else's first. So that's the reason why when I said a Superman type, he's not really Superman. I've changed him enough where you could recognize there's elements in there, but it's not really Superman. And I'm not trying to make a Superman comic. I'm trying to make a comic book about the Midnight Shadow. Anyway, I did write in the legal stuff here, and I wrote that it's copyright the artist Scott, and you don't need to do this for yours. I'm doing this simply because this is a YouTube channel, okay? And this is going to go out over the internet, and who knows who could see it. So I'm just kind of getting the legal stuff out of the way here, okay? Then I went to page 1, okay? And I'm going to end this here right now, and I'm going to pick up page 1 on the next one, okay? Only because I'm coming up close and I don't want to cut myself off in mid-sentence. But this is the artist Scott. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, send some comments in, and catch the next video. It's coming up real soon. Thank you very much.